In this video, we're going to talk very briefly about the different types of ports and peripherals that you should know about modern machinery. If you look at my title slide, you can see that mouse technology has changed quite a bit over the years. And the current newest version that I've found from Microsoft looks like this. And this is actually off. And when you snap it into a curve, it's on. So they continue to evolve as peripheral devices. I just thought that was a really cool image to show how far they've come. When the roller wheel in some of the earlier advanced mice came out, that was a big deal. And now obviously you can press down on the wheel as well for some selection functions. And you've got left and right side buttons on some of the gamers mice. I've seen mice that cost a couple $100 that have removable weights for gamers. So mice technology has become its own little market in computer science. It's kind of interesting to see how it's evolved over the years. Let's first talk about ports though. We're going to start with the really easy ones that you see on devices. And this is something that's pretty simple for even the most beginning students in computer science. So we're not going to beat this like a rented mule or anything, but you've got a headphone jack and a microphone jack on most laptops and devices and sound card interfaces and on the front or the back of computers. Pretty common stuff. Ethernet, okay, this is an RJ45 connection, and I'm going to show you one example of those on the Raspberry Pi. But this is your network connection cable, and this is part of the OSI model at the physical layer, or layer 1. But basically that's the hardware, right? That's where the signal comes when you want to connect to a network. The common high definition multimedia interface, this is where it's at today. HDMI, it looks kind of like a little bit of a trapezoid. That is both video and audio, and that's an important distinction. Hint for quizzes or exams. You want to know that HDMI gives you both video and audio. It should be fairly obvious because most flat screen TVs like this monitor have at least 3 HDMI ports in them. Okay? The other one that's a little older is called DisplayPort, and it is only video. This is a mini DisplayPort. I found a picture of that I wanted to show you. And this is what it looks like to be a full-size DisplayPort. A buddy of mine was visiting, and he has a work laptop, and it only had a video output that was DisplayPort. So we went to Walmart and got a DisplayPort to HDMI converter so that he could plug this in with an HDMI cable. This came out of his laptop, and he was able to at least get the video to a larger monitor that I loaned him while he was down here visiting. So DisplayPort is video only. There's no audio signal with the DisplayPort. So that's those ports. Let's take a look at some more. Okay, if you have a Mac, you're going to see Thunderbolt, which is kind of a squarish trapezoid. This is a USB-C Thunderbolt port. It looks just like the regular USB-C. The older ones, when I was coming through, VGA was the standard, and that's the old pins. A lot of schools still have VGA monitors. This is DVI. This was kind of between VGA, then they went to DVI, and then they kind of went to DisplayPort, and now HDMI is kind of taken over. But digital visual interface, I have trouble saying that every time, is video only, and it looks like a really complicated grid, and then some of the cables only have a couple squares of the grid and the horizontal tab, so there's some slight differences between the DVIs based on the versioning, but basically that is also video only. Okay. A lot of what you use today is USB, and I don't think I've had very many students that have come into my class that don't know what USB is, but let's go through it so that you kind of know what they're called. USB Type A is the standard square with the little tab in that you got to make sure it's going the right way in the port. That's a Type A. Type B was used to connect largely to printers, and it's kind of a squarish end, and you can kind of start to see patterns in the way they build these connectors. You've got the wider, broader, and then you've got the squared off versions because they're trying to make them smaller. The newest version of USB is Type C, and it's a very small oval, and this is a very nice improvement to USB. It really is. USB has gone through, it's a format, it's a standard, if you will, for communication between peripherals and motherboards. And so it's gone through some genesis. USB 2.0 had a high speed of 480 megabits, but when they got the USB 3, it was considered super speed and could go to 5 gigabits, which is significantly faster. USB 3 was at least partially driven because they wanted to be able to have external hard drives that were much faster. Okay, USB 3.1 Gen 2 is now super speed, and that only works with the USB-C connectors. So that's kind of the generational thing for USB. You're also going to see some older mini USBs, which is kind of think of it as a fatter version of the micro USBs, which you're going to see a lot today. The little discs that you set your cell phone on to charge frequently use the micro USB because it's so small. Now the Raspberry Pis, if you look at the end of it, it's got 4 USB ports, and 2 of them are blue. So these are regular USB 2.0s, and these are USB 3.0s. Here's the RJ45 network cable so that I can connect this to my network. And on the side, we've got a USB-C, the new connector, and that's basically the power. And then I've got 2 micro HDMI, and this is really new. This is a micro version of the HDMI. And then I've got my audio jack that you saw on the first slide we did. So, and then of course I have a slot for the memory chip on the bottom. So there's a lot of different use for these slots. In this Surface, I've got a USB-A on the side that has a very large hard drive, flash drive that I use to store a lot of my data. I also have a very small SIM card in the back that's got a 0.5 terabyte on it as well. So the ports and the external things that you use, I just want you to be familiar with them. We're not going to go into great detail because you can look at them and play with them and go to Best Buy and hang out and look at all of the different cables and dongles. It's very, very frequent that you'll find me walking around with 6 or 7 of these in my bag because I want to make sure that I'm able to connect. When we go to FBLA competitions, I'll take a bunch of these connectors for students that bring Macs to display their work for judges, and we're constantly needing to go from one of the older formats or one of the Mac formats to HDMI. So it's a good idea to have a couple of these around if you're working off of a laptop. They do go bad. It's a dongle, so they'll wear out. And when you put things in and out of your computer, take care of it. A lot of these things have very small connectors, and you can snap them over time and wear them out to where they're loose and they can short. And in some cases, some of these older laptops, you take out one of your ports and you've really lost a lot of functionality. Okay. All right. Let's talk really quick about the common peripherals that you're going to see. Again, this is an introductory course, so I'm going to go through these. Some of them should be extremely obvious. Webcams. A lot of times these are built into the Surfaces or the Macs or whatever it is that you're using. And so you're going to see these a lot, and they come in all different flavors. They've got regular 720p, they've got 1080p's, and now they've got the 4K webcams. So they've come a long way. And one of the interesting things that has come out on new webcams is the privacy flip down of the slides, so that if someone inadvertently turns on your camera, they can't necessarily see it if you've got the privacy slide or the privacy screen over it. So even the camera technology has evolved with simple things like blocking the camera so that you have a privacy switch, if you will, a way to keep people from inadvertently turning on your camera and seeing you. This is a stylus, an input tablet. Okay, Wacom makes these. They used to be called Targus pads. I think they've got some newer names for some of the bigger ones. And some of these have like 250 degrees of touch sensitivity. So just like touch screens, you have pens that you can use on your Surfaces or your iPads. You can also have an individual tablet that does the same thing. And these were obviously precursors to some of the touch screens. Obviously mice, keyboards, speakers, monitors we'll talk about. But one of the things that I want to show that people don't necessarily think about as a peripheral are hard drives, extra storage. And these things, there used to be only really one company, they were called Black X, that had these external bays. And I've got one that has 4 and another one that has 2. And here's a picture of another one. And these are great. They plug in through a USB connection to your computer. And if you have an old drive, or what I get is a lot of people, I've had other teachers say, hey, I got a drive and I think it's going bad. Can you check it out for me? And I can take the bare drive out of their computer, or they hand it to me and I can literally drop a bare drive into, so it's just the drive itself, an internal hard drive, drop it in, whether it's the full size ones or the new smaller ones. I can literally drop it in that and read it as a USB drive, and I can look at it and see what's going on with the drive. And because it's exposed, if you hear it when you plug it in, if it powers up and you hear click, 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 those are the heads crashing in the spinning drives. So you can very quickly tell this drive's toast. Okay? I've actually sent a drive to an FBI crime lab to try to have the data recovered from it, because I thought I had some of my kids' old movies on it, and they put it in a white room, took it apart, and they were not able to get the data. They said the heads had crashed too much. There was no recoverable data on the drives. An interesting side effect with hard drives that we'll talk about as we go is the sizing and how they do that with platters on the spinners that you need to be aware of, because they're cramming more and more data on the same platters that they've been building for the last 20 years. So if you buy a spinning drive, they're cheap, they hold a lot, but you still need to back up your data. We'll talk about that more about drives. These are called network attached storage, or a NAS, as opposed to a SAN, which is a storage area network that goes in a data center tower. We'll talk about those in another video. But SANs are very, very popular, and they're coming down in cost. I actually have 2 of these in my home because one of them's getting old and I think it's about to die. But you can put different hard drives in here, and under what's called RAID configurations, I have mine set up with 4 drives, so that if one of those drives goes bad, the way it writes the information to the drives, it kind of does it in a parallel scheme called RAID. If one of my drives goes bad, I can literally shut it down, take out the bad drive, put a blank new drive in, close it, turn it on, wait a couple hours, and I've lost no data. And it's really, really cool. And I will put a picture of mine or spin the camera around on one of these videos and show it to you when we're talking about that, because it's really kind of cool to see how those things work. And they are very, very good, especially as you have a family and want to keep pictures. And I've done a lot of photography and weddings, and so I still have wedding shoots from 15, 20 years ago. And every now and then I'll get a call from someone that says, hey, my grandfather passed away. We don't have any really good shots from the wedding. Did you keep one? Did you happen to get one that we don't know? And I'll go back and dig them out and see if I can find it. And that's a really good feeling when you can do that. So I like to keep all of the data that I've done and a lot of the shoots I did on storage that's kind of my own cloud. And I've had drives go bad. Most spinning drives, after about the 2-year point, you got to start worrying. But peripherals, your keyboard is a peripheral. Okay? Anything that you plug into your computer or wirelessly attached to your computer is a peripheral. All right? So, and the other thing I wanted to point out that I think I kind of blew past on one of the slides is this guy. and that's a card reader. Okay, and it's got, well, this particular one has a USB, but it's also got readers for all the different types of SIM cards and chips that are the different flash memories for like cameras. My video camera has one size. My older video camera has a bigger card. It's like square. My camera uses the same larger square ones. There's different formats for cards and chips that are all some of the flash memory that would go into that reader, and then that reader will go USB into your system. I actually bought on Amazon, it looks like a power strip. It's about this big, and it's got like 20 or 25 USB-A slots. And then it's one USB going into my computer, and that sits on the top of my desktop because I want it to be able to plug in all these little different things. And for major projects, like for all of my PhD work for my dissertation, for the videos I do for this YouTube channel, I bought these little tiny, they're called Extreme SSDs, and we'll talk about these in the drives, but they plug into USB, and it's a half a terabyte on each one of them. And I can literally unplug it, stick it in my pocket, and have it. And making backups is just child's play with those things. So, and they're getting much faster. So there's a lot of cool things you can do with peripherals, and it's really kind of neat. So that's all I really need you guys to know for peripherals and ports. Pretty basic stuff. If you're not sure, go look at your computers. Look at the computers around the house. Look at the different ports, see what they are, see what you have in your house. You can probably find everything. If you've got any number of computers in your home, you can see all of these different ports. Okay? And when you see something new that you buy or an electronic gadget, look at the ports and identify what they are. Okay? It's just good to know what you have and what you need, because every now and then, oh, this cable from here can help me in a pinch over here. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is graphic cards, but I'll see you on the other side.